think I'm spooky?
Be afraid. Be very afraid. What have you done to his eyes?
Good evening, and welcome to Soft and Spooky. For today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the March horror release, The Bride! Exclamation point. I know, it's very late. I was actually in the process of moving across the country, if you didn't know. I went from the East Coast to the West Coast, and yeah, still working on settling in. It's not completely filled out, but yeah, I figured I'd come on here and talk about The Bride because I have a lot of thoughts. If you haven't seen one of my reviews before, essentially in the first half, I am spoiler-free, so if you were contemplating seeing the movie, you can still get my generalized thoughts without having it spoiled. And then in the second half, that is where I go a lot more in depth and kind of talk about specific scenes that might be spoilery. But yeah, with that being said, let's go ahead and sink our teeth in. The Bride was directed by Maggie Gyllenhaal, and it stars Jessie Buckley and Christian Bale. You may be familiar with Christian Bale from the Dark Knight trilogy. He was also in American Psycho, The Prestige, The Machinist. He is a heavy hitter. Personally, I was unfamiliar with Jessie Buckley prior to this film. I did find out that she was in Men, as well as Fargo and Chernobyl, which I started but I never finished because I think I heard that it was canceled and I wasn't ready for the heartbreak. One thing I will credit Jessie Buckley is that despite some of the factors in this film, I really do think that she was an absolute powerhouse. She kind of flips between different characters, and I think that she really gave this performance her all. And this was kind of unrelated. Well, sort of. There was a promo shoot for The Bride on Entertainment Weekly. I'll put some clips of it here. She really knows how to model. Holy crap, she was really hitting those poses. Yeah, it gave me a similar vibe to the promo shoot for The X-Files that Gillian Anderson and David Duchovny did. That photo shoot lives in my head rent-free. It's just such a cool shoot. Additionally, in the supporting cast, we have Annette Bening, Penelope Cruz, Peter Sarsgaard, and Maggie Gyllenhaal's brother, Jake Gyllenhaal. I'm not gonna lie, the cast in this really had me excited. I feel like all of these are very consistent performers. Sometimes a little iffy on Sarsgaard. I don't know. But I was very excited to see the story unfold with these characters. This was gonna be a crime noir vibe, and it also wasn't just focused on the bride, but it was actually told from her perspective. I felt like this was gonna be such a refreshing take, and that's what makes it all the more difficult to say I really did not like this film. This isn't really a spoiler, but in the very opening scene, there is a monologue that is delivered from Jessie Buckley, and she is portraying Mary Shelley, the author of Frankenstein. I think actually something was similarly done, I think this might be an homage to the 1935 Bride of Frankenstein, but what I found interesting is that there was a singular spotlight on this character, and it very much read more so as a stage play. It gave me a stage performance vibe. And I almost wonder, maybe this would have been better adapted for the stage, because I think this was the first inkling that I think the film was trying to attempt way too many concepts at a time. So the scene following directly after that monologue from Mary Shelley, she continues to narrate, and we are introduced to Jessie Buckley's main character, which is the bride. And it very much kind of felt like a hollow imitation of the cool girl monologue from Gone Girl, which I found to be, the Gone Girl one is effective, this one is not. I did have to kind of jot it down really quickly, so I'm definitely paraphrasing, but the narration says something like, she was being good, she was being quiet, and she was in her own personal hell. And I don't know. It just didn't, I think I understand what they were trying to go for, just kind of making this a feminist film and empowering women. But at the same time, they muddle the plot by adding too many things. Because, we have this rebellious two against the world plot, kind of Bonnie and Clyde, but then also there's a subplot with cops that are kind of following along this case, and you even delve a little bit more into this one cop that it's just like, okay, who cares? And then there's also a mafia subplot. I think the most egregious example, though, is there's a ballroom scene, and everybody starts to do a synchronized dance along with Frankenstein's monster and the bride. And, was this real? Was this a hallucination or an idealized version of events from the monsters? But then cops intervene, so I don't really think it is. It just felt very strange to have them all dance with them. And it was kind of like, what are you trying to say with this? What is the point? What is the point? What was the reason? So, if you couldn't tell, my general thoughts on The Bride, ! I did not like this! ! I think because I hyped this up so much in my mind, you can even see in my horror movie forecast, I was stoked for this. I was really excited to see what they did because it seemed like it was going to be so cool, so unique and refreshing, and ultimately I just left feeling like I had wasted my money and wasted my time. If you don't want any spoilers, feel free to click out of the video now, but before you go, please consider giving this video a thumbs up and subscribing to my channel if you haven't already. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into our spoiler-filled thoughts in 3, 2, 1, spoilers. So, as you may have guessed from my spoiler-free section, this movie really did not hit the mark for me. It did seem so... I definitely was very excited to see what Maggie Gyllenhaal brought to the table with this film, especially because it felt very much like a passion project for her, and she did experiment a lot with things and concepts and narrative angles, and I think that she did really swing for the rafters, but it didn't land, and it felt kind of like an art film, but I think that's what kind of highlighted a lot of the weaker aspects of the film. To further explain the monologue at the beginning where Jessie Buckley is Mary Shelley, throughout the film you hear Mary Shelley and it almost sort of seems like she is speaking through Jessie Buckley's character. So, okay, oh gosh, this is so confusing to explain. Jessie Buckley as the bride will break out into these kind of, hey, what are you gonna do? These kind of outbursts that it almost seems like it is the spirit of Mary Shelley speaking through her. Interesting, right? Okay, that's a unique concept and a unique angle to go through. That being said, 1, it was very hard to understand her, and 2, it was just kind of gibberish. It kind of just seemed like it was making the bride look crazy. And it was kind of jarring. It was annoying because I felt okay, you're breaking up the momentum of the scene so that she can have another outburst. And it was it's so annoying. Sometimes it was Mary Shelley's character speaking through the bride as if she were writing and meticulously trying to find the correct word to use. Going through all these different synonyms. And it's I like it because it is a creative way to show the writer's process and how when a writer is writing a character, they kind of are creating a human. They are giving life to a human And that mirrors the it's alive, like the story of Frankenstein, where it is this mad scientist that is bringing life to a human. So I get it. I do. And I like that in theory, but in practice, it interrupted the pacing of pretty much every scene. Also, the next point that I have to make, I'm honestly a little scared to say. I think it is a hot take, and I think a lot of people are going to disagree. I do want to preface by saying I think Christian Bale is a phenomenal actor. I think that he truly embodies characters and gets their motivations and becomes the person when he is in a role. I think that he is a very dedicated actor. That being said, I think this was probably my least favorite performance that he has given. I know! I don't even want to say it because I didn't feel like he was invested in this character, and I did see that some of these line deliveries, like they were kind of over the top and a little bit goofy. And I totally understand that there is only a certain extent that the actor can do with the source material, and I think that he was fighting a lot, but it wasn't my favorite. And I think that is like such a big part that I really disliked was this relationship between the bride and Frankenstein's monster. It was like the Joker and Harley Quinn, and I hated every second of it. Just to further explain my point, there is a scene with Frankenstein's monster where he's getting a tattoo, which already I'm like, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? And then the bride and him start getting all crazy sexual and freaky in front of like the tattoo artist. Stop. What is this movie? And it just, they're like scenes where they're scream laughing in people's faces. Hello? Yeah, the sexual energy between Frankenstein's monster and the bride just, hey, no thank you. Hey, no, I'm good. I'm good. I did not need to see that. Whoa. Well, you won't because it's blurry. Yeah, I think like the first time that they do the deed, it was pretty gross because the bride is licking up, like, because he's all sewn up and stuff on his stomach. She's like licking up his wounds and like really tonguing in there. I think the worst was when they're at the drive-in and he's licking up her neck after she threw up, and you see there's like chunks. I mentioned it a little bit in my spoiler-free section, but I don't think that the detective subplot was really that important because Penelope Cruz and Peter Sarsgaard, I don't think that their detective characters really made that much of an impact that couldn't have been made by a different character that was already a lot more involved in the story. I had a big issue with one of these scenes with them. So we find out that the detective that Peter Sarsgaard plays, he had a witness that was trying to infiltrate the mob, which was the bride's character. And he ended up making whoopee with her, which is, big no-no, you don't have sex with your witnesses. Then she ends up having her accident and she dies. And so, he feels very guilty about it. And he ends up giving Penelope Cruz, who has kind of been his right-hand man, like her, what's that one clip?
I'm Mr. Sterling's right-hand arm, man.
But he gave her his badge, and it just felt like this very ham-fisted kind of like girl power, look, women can be detectives too. And I don't know, I don't think that it was strong enough writing to achieve the accomplishment or the feeling that it was trying to go for. Also, just ridiculous. Okay, so during that ballroom scene where there's that weird synchronized dancing and then it gets interrupted by the cops and they try to apprehend the bride, and she straight up points the gun at people, she takes a hostage, and then ends up shooting a cop. And then Peter Sarsgaard's character says that she was acting in self-defense. What? She was actively threatening people. What do you mean that's self-defense? That doesn't make any sense. And like maybe it's because he felt guilty for leading to her events, but like, come on. That's so, For the ending, Penelope Cruz's character follows the bride and Frankenstein's monster to Dr. Euphronius's lab where they both were created. And basically the cops follow them too, and they swarm and just shoot the crap out of both of them. Then Penelope Cruz's character comes in and stops them from, like, I guess, taking away the monsters. And she says that the cops need to clear out because she's, in charge here with being the detective now. And that Dr. Euphronius can take all the time that she needs to say goodbye or whatever. Basically, it was insinuating like, hey, do what you gotta do, bring these two back to life. What I don't get is why? Why? Because the bride and Frankenstein's monster killed people. They killed people.
What about the people he murdered?
What murder?
I don't get the motivation behind any of these characters. Why would you reanimate them if they were killing people and Okay, I think I've calmed down a little bit, and now I can say some positive feedback about the film. I will say for Jessie Buckley's performance as the bride, as well as Mary Shelley, I think she did put her whole heart and soul in this, and this does look to be a very taxing role to take on, and I think she did execute it well. I also think that her specific casting in this film was actually a very good casting, because when she is put in the right makeup, she does have a very vintage look to her, and I think it really sold this time period for me. In terms... Oh, yeah. Nope, come on, you just had me, damn it. In terms of cinematography, I think that Lawrence Sher did an amazing job at really capturing this time period, like the essence of it. And I could kind of see how this would be honestly like a dream project to work for, because it really allowed that person to flex their muscle and do a lot of interesting ideas with their cinematography. So I do appreciate that Maggie Gyllenhaal created this opportunity for him. And the last thing that I wanted to mention that I really absolutely loved about this film was the makeup. The makeup! That actually might be the saddest thing about not enjoying this film, is that I feel like the character design for the bride, with that sort of smear of black across her face, I think that that is so cool. It is so replicable, which I think actually is something very important when you're trying to make a definitive horror character. Because when you look back at Pennywise, the more recent adaptations, those were very replicable looks that allowed people to create those for like Halloween and stuff, and it maintains relevance. And I think that's what makes me so sad that I didn't like this film, because I would have loved to go as her for Halloween. Additionally, like the hair with it being all crimped and kind of voluminous, and then the bleached eyebrows, like this was so cool. I also was so impressed with the character design for Frankenstein's monster, with this kind of crooked, broken nose and the staples and stitches everywhere. I think that's what I was hoping for with Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein, because that character design, I felt like it left me wanting a lot more. It just kind of felt painted on. So I'm just going to mention some of the makeup team by name for the bride because I was so impressed. Roberto Baez, Vanessa Anderson, Jason Collins, just to name a few of you, you rocked it. This character design and the makeup, phenomenal. At the end of the day, I do think that Maggie Gyllenhaal did want to put something out there unique, and I think that she did have a lot of creative ideas. I just wish I would have liked the story more. And that is something that I really want to emphasize, is that I would rather see someone in Hollywood be ambitious and it falls short, rather than making formulaic slop. All right, and that just about does it for my thoughts on The Bride. What did you think of this film? Let me know in the comments below. Also, if you enjoyed this film, I just want to reiterate that I'm just some bonehead on the internet, and I am just sharing my thoughts about how I perceive the film. So I am always open to hearing how you felt about the film and why you liked it so much, and just keep it respectful. Also, if you enjoyed this video, definitely give it a thumbs up so I know, and it also helps me in the algorithm. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please consider doing so. I have finally reached 1,000 subscribers! Woo! I just love seeing horror movies and talking about them, so I'm glad that you all were able to support me with that. And yeah, with that, I will see you all in the next video. Don't forget to stay soft and spooky. Bye.